welcome to WeVideo's Film School. My name is Joe Wolff. I'm the Director of Brand and Content at WeVideo. I am broadcasting to you from Chicago, which we are experiencing more and more depressing weather by the day. So wherever you are coming from, I hope that you are happy, healthy, and ready to talk about film. So I am joined by two wonderful individuals who are going to introduce themselves in a little bit here. My colleague, Ryan Kochevar, Director of Customer Marketing. Later on in this presentation, he's going to walk you through WeVideo's platform and provide some tips and tricks along the way. And then we are both joined by our friend, Hans Mundahl, who is a former educator and an active filmmaker. So he's going to be talking through film essentials, crucial to getting started making your own content. Our agenda for today, as I mentioned, Film Essentials Part 1 and Film Essentials Part 2. Those are going to cover really the basics of filmmaking, from mise en scène to cinematography to video editing to sound design. Then you're going to join me for a look at how to build a film curriculum in the classroom, and then you'll join Ryan for WeVideo tips and tricks. This entire presentation, we have a lot of educators on with us right now. So this presentation is from the lens of using video in the classroom. However, if you are not an educator and you're here as a creator, especially Film Essentials Part 1 and Film Essentials Part 2 are going to cover a lot of things that you need to know to make good content. And then just some housekeeping before I turn it over to Hans. This presentation, we're going to cover a ton of stuff over the next 2 hours-ish and some change. So this presentation will be shared to all attendees probably tomorrow via email. Also, if you are an educator and you're looking to cash in on some PD hours, we will be sending a PD certificate template, following the honor code there. We here enjoy free things. We hope you do as well. So you may have noticed in the agenda, in between our sessions, there will be about 5 minutes for just a quick break and refresh as we change course. And during those breaks, we're going to have some trivia and offer some prizes to winners. So we have some movie-themed trivia. I'm not going to lie, the first one after this first presentation, it's a little bit of a softball, but it's going to get harder as we go on. All right. So first one to answer in the chat, winners will receive this wonderful box full of some WeVideo swag, a green screen, and a ring light as well. And then last but not least, if you have questions, the chat is live, the chat is active. We will all be in there when we're not presenting. So if you have any questions at all, please sound off in the chat. And without further ado, Hans, I'm going to stop presenting and I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, and I am so pleased to be with you all. My name is Hans Mundahl, and I am a filmmaker. I'm an educator, and I was actually editing some film earlier today for the company that I work for. I've also been an in-house videographer for many years for a variety of companies, and I'm so pleased to be here. So let me share my screen. And I think everyone can see that now. And I'm sure someone will give me a heads up if you cannot see that. So let's go ahead and get started. For me, filmmaking is a passion, a love. I bring the lens of an educator. I taught film and live TV production for many years. Like I said, I've been a commercial filmmaker, both narrative and commercial. And I want to go back. I want to go back one step to some foundational literature that shaped how I understand the written language. So there were three texts that really shaped my understanding of the written language. The first was Neuromancer by William Gibson, which, if you want an incredibly compelling first page of a novel, read the first page of that novel. For me, Neuromancer told me that language could be breathtaking, that I could read an entire book in a single setting. It was completely different from anything else I had read. It told me that language was thrilling. Robert Frost. As I began reading Robert Frost as a young person, I thought of him as a nature poet. As I studied poetry, the form of poetry, I realized that Robert Frost was a lot more, that Stopping by Woods on Snowy Evening is about death and suicide and darkness and fear. Totally changed my perspective on that writing. And The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis, I read it the first time as a fun fantasy story, and then I learned about this concept called allegory, and that completely blew my mind when I went back and realized that the language that he was using, the form that he was using, had a second layer to it. And what I hope to share with you is not only my excitement for filmmaking, whatever small tips, tricks, and hacks that I can share with you as a commercial filmmaker, as an educator, as a current in-house studio filmmaker. What I hope that I can share is that film is a language, and the goal of film is to communicate something. When we watch a film, when we create a film, we're trying to either receive the communication from the filmmaker to have our experience or to communicate something to our audience. That might be entertaining, it might be fun, it might be frightening. If you're into absurdist cinema, it might even be we're trying to communicate a feeling of alienation. And like written language, like books and poetry and song lyrics and rap and other forms of written language, film has rules, film has conventions, film has a grammar to it. And I'll give you an example of that, a really simple thing. We expect that when we watch a scene in a film, that the next scene that follows will move forward in time, that it will take place after the previous scene. That's a convention, that's a part of the film grammar. And that being said, we can, of course, take those rules and we can play with them and we can twist them and break them and do intentional things with them. And the two screenshots that I have on the slide with you today are films that play with that very convention, that the scene after the last takes place forward in time. These two films, Pulp Fiction and Arrival, play with sequence and time and very intentionally use the language of film to create a very intentional effect. But I hope that we can begin today by learning some of those rules, learning some of those conventions, learning the grammar of film so that we can either teach it as a form of language to our students, so that we can use it to improve our understanding of film, and also then we can create more effectively. And while we've been speaking as humans for probably millions of years and writing for thousands and thousands of years, we've been speaking the language of film only since the late 1800s. The first film ever made was probably this racehorse, which actually was made of a series of still images, a whole series of cameras that were set up in a line, and the horse tripped the camera as it went, which ironically, the film, the language of film used much later when Neo did Bullet Time, right? A very similar setup was used, so fascinating. And films like Safety Last from the 1920s already were using special effects, in-camera effects, editing tricks. But the language of film is young. I think that's incredibly exciting. I think it really allows us to innovate, to play, to experience film fresh as an audience and as creators. And as we learn the language of film, it enhances how we tell stories and watch stories. This is a screenshot from the Disney show Andor. It follows a prison break. And I look at this screenshot, the little dots on the top right are prisoners escaping the space prison. And I look at this shot and it tells me two things. First of all, one, there's this obvious like cannon visual element. The prisoners are like being shot from a cannon, which tells us that the rebellion is coming. Very hopeful. And yet the prisoners are themselves these tiny, minuscule, insignificant dots juxtaposed against this massive infrastructure of the empire, a very chilling image. both of those things existing in that one shot. Fascinating, a beautiful show. So like Joe said, we're going to talk about what we see on the screen, what we hear on the screen, and how that is shown. We're also going to talk about production. Two resources here. Filmmaking for Teens is a great book if you're an educator working with young people creating film. My own Filmmaker's Workbook, which is on the iBook store, is very much a workbook. It gives you a technique, gives you something to watch and something to do, very, very much like the workbook to a language textbook, if you will. It's intended to be used in that way. And my lens is as both a commercial filmmaker, as an educator, and I'd love to hear your questions, thoughts later as we progress through our time together. As Joe said, mise-en-scène is the composition of elements in front of the camera, a French term coming from stage. And remember, film is a new media, stage and theater a much older media. Film began actually very much as filming what was on stage. A lot of the early films look like they're plays. But mise-en-scène refers to everything that is available to be filmed. Think about all the things that you might see in a film, and this is led by the production designer, the set designer, of course, supervised by the director. Oppenheimer uses mise-en-scène to really put you into that moment, into that period of time, right? Mise-en-scène might be used to establish a period in time that exists. It might be established to put you into a scene that doesn't exist. But it's the composition of elements in front of the camera. It's the lights that shine. It's the actors who are cast. It's the design of the set. It's where we choose to film if we're outdoors. It's how we arrange everything in the set if we're filming on a set. It's where we put the actors in relation to one another. It's how deep the scene is. If all of that seems very theoretical, think of the opening oneer from Back to the Future, where we pan across hundreds and hundreds of clocks. We see the robotic dog food feeder that Doc Brown has set up. And at the very end, we see a skateboard bump into a container of plutonium. A lot of elements in that scene that tell us something about Doc Brown. He's obsessed with time. He's not here right now. He's a little kooky, and something to do with plutonium. So mise-en-scène is the stuff that is available in front of the camera. And we can do some really interesting teaching around that. We could provide students with an image, a screenshot from a film, as I have done here, the opening oneer from Back to the Future, and have them tell us what they see. We could have students create a collection of images in a comic book, using maybe stock photos to tell a story. We could look at a scene and analyze that scene by asking questions about the mise-en-scène. And if we want students to be more hands-on, if we're teaching a film class that is hands-on, what we might do is we would have them say, shoot a 30-second one shot in their room at home, in which I learned something about the student whose room it is, right? No voiceover, no text. I learned that you're interested in lacrosse, that you like to read, that you're messy. Or you could get, that's pretty macro, you could get really micro. Maybe you work together with an art teacher, or if you have a maker lab, and you have them make a prop. And I have here a prop that I had students make for a heist film. This is not $10,000. It's just some paper that we cut together. But this was a prop that I had students make to learn about mise-en-scène, to learn about props. And I kept it after we were done with the film. And we have some links to additional resources there for you. Cinematography, then, if we think about mise-en-scène as what is on the set or the scene available for us to film, cinematography then is how we choose to film it, right? It's a combination of the word cinema and photography. And it's obviously very connected, and there's some overlap. We can only film what's there, sort of, not always true if we're thinking about special effects. And we'll talk more about that in a second. But cinematography is then deciding how we show what is on screen. That might be lighting. It might be what kind of lens we use. It might be, if we're filming on film, what kind of stock we're using. If we're filming digitally, the kinds of LUTs we're using to get the effect that we're using. the way that we grade, the way that we integrate, as I talked about, those visual effects. And you can see there's already some overlap in between the idea of mise-en-scène and cinematography, right? They're interrelated with one another. I think about the cinematography of Casablanca as we're walking through that smoky airport scene, right? Bogart coming into frame. That is just absolutely gorgeous. And very tactically, if we want to just get really nuts and bolts, we have shots and scenes. A scene is made up of shots. Shot is literally from when you trim a clip, it's when you start the camera, stop the camera, and then we sequence those shots together intentionally into a scene. Usually we put together our scenes in post, in editing, though with a one shot, a oneer, we might have multiple shots inside of a scene. And so this scene from Gravity is a oneer. It's a one shot. The camera moves, the actors move, and we're tight, we're wide, but the camera never stops. But very nuts and bolts, a scene is usually made up of shots. We might have the incredibly exciting scene from Empire Strikes Back. Hope there's no spoilers here. I Am Your Father. A scene is made up of multiple shots, wide, medium, and you can see there's lots of different kinds of shots, different angles. Maybe we have an establishing shot to show where we are, medium shot to show action, wide shot, low angle for a certain mood, medium shot to show a character, and then a close-up shot to show emotion. And just to even more break that down, we have lots of different kinds of shots. So a shot might be an establishing shot, a wide shot that tells us where we are. The shot is set in space. It's near a planet. We don't have to tell me that with a voiceover. You don't have to tell me that with text. I can tell. We might have an over-the-shoulder shot. This is an over-the-shoulder shot from Harry Potter. Over-the-shoulder shot, very close. I can see the shoulder of one actor and the face of another. This is at eye level. It's putting me right into the scene. I'm really feeling like I'm into the scene and over the shoulder. I might have a medium shot where I can see waist up, but I'm low angle. This makes the subject of the scene, these two actors here, feel very powerful. I am weak. Neo is weak. Neo's lying on the ground. He's weak. The agents are strong. Here's another shot where I'm now top down, right? Now the aliens attacking New York are strong and the Avengers are weak. Here's a flip of that. Now the Avengers are up high. I'm down low. I'm Loki. I've lost the Battle of New York, right? Here we can see who's winning this fight. And here we can see who won this fight just by where the angle of that shot. Talked about a oneer earlier, the Gravity scene. Here's a oneer from Indiana Jones. The oneer from Gravity, very technically complex. The oneer from Indiana Jones, the drinking scene in Marion's Tavern, not very technically complex. The camera moves. We start with a wide shot. We move in. We move out. We get functionally many different kinds of shots in a oneer. I love the shot from Mr. Robot. We're going to talk a little bit about eyeline and headroom later on in the program today. This shot almost looks like it's done wrong. I have a ton of empty space over on the right. I have our actor on the left, and he has no eyeline, no eye room. This almost looks like it's done wrong. But that's playing with this idea, again, like we talked about, of the rules of film. Normally, I would think of the shot should be shot rule of thirds. The actor should be looking over to our right. We should have eye room. But this shot wants to feel broken, wants to feel wrong, wants to feel off, wants to feel weird. And so we're playing with the language of film to do that. Oh my gosh, this is a fascinating effect, the Kochevar effect, where we show an actor's face, then we show what they're looking at, and we go back to the actor's face. And the audience actually interprets the shot differently based on the middle shot, not necessarily the actor shot. You can actually do this where you film yourself with a neutral expression, then you show something neutral and you show the same shot again. Your audience will interpret that neutrally. Then you do it again. You have yourself a sad thing in the middle and your same shot. Again, the audience will interpret the actor's face as sad. We have the actor's face something exciting, and then the actor's face, and the actor will interpret that as exciting. The sequence of shots is more important than each individual shot together. How are we going to shoot it? Probably going to shoot it on our phone. If you're shooting on your phone, shoot up and down. If you're shooting for social media, try to shoot side to side. If you can, for film, lock your elbows, that rule of thirds, as you can see here, where we have our subject on one of these intersecting lines. Your camera app may even allow you to put these lines on your camera so you can line them up. Why do we do that? It looks good. It looks nice, unless we're looking for a different effect that we want to play with. Give yourself some headroom so your head isn't cut off, your actor's head isn't cut off. Give yourself some lead room so that unless you're going for a different effect, here's a person walking, we can see they have the lead room. And think as you're thinking of the shot, what they're looking at, shot that Kuleshov effect, that can be powerful. How are you going to do cinematography in the classroom? Show your students a oneer, have them break it down into the different shots. You could give your students a script or raw footage and have them edit it themselves. You could give just a scene. You could show them a scene and then have them integrate or write about all of the different pieces that I've talked about. Maybe you have your students, or you shoot a Kuleshov shot where you show yourself, what they look at, and yourself again, and then talk about the emotion that generates. What do you feel? So, and there's some links to more resources as well. All right, we're briefly going to touch on sound, and we're going to stay on track, as Joe mentioned. So diegetic, non-diegetic sound. Diegetic sound is sound that the characters hear. Non-diegetic sound is characters that is sound that the audience hears. Dialogue, music on the radio, that's diegetic. Music on the soundtrack, that's non-diegetic. Sound is really fun. I tend, when I'm shooting, not to focus at all on sound while I'm shooting. I'm looking for the shot. Dialogue, yes, I want to get dialogue, but I can redub dialogue, and I can use Foley. I can fake diegetic sound. And it's easier to fake, honestly, than often to get. We could look at a shot like a scene from Jaws, the music, dun, 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 that's non-diegetic, but then the roar of the engine, the shark, the water, those are all sounds that would be non-diegetic that we would put in later. Love to do kind of quick writes where we show a scene, we think about sound. We could do the non-diegetic sound on the introduction to TV shows is great, very intentionally used. A really fun thing to do is to take a scene and edit it with different sound to emphasize different things. A lot of horror works because of sound. A lot of action works because of sound. So to recap, before I turn it back over to Joe, mise-en-scène is what appears on set. Cinematography is what the camera points at. Overlap there, of course, between mise-en-scène, cinematography, and editing. And then diegetic sound is often created in post. All right, we could do something like watch a clip from Jurassic Park. Spielberg loves the Kuleshov effect. He shoots a lot of characters reacting to things. That's a classic push in on an actor. Classic Spielberg comes from that Kuleshov. We could look at that, have the students look at mise-en-scène, cinematography, shot size, framing, angle, camera movement, and sound. We're not going to do that now. That's a great assignment that you could do later, or that you could do with your students. All right, with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Pass it back over.
Awesome. Thanks, Hans. And I will have you back up in a minute. We probably won't take the full 5 minutes. I do want to echo what he said about Jurassic Park. I think, there's a reason that the original Jurassic Park, I'm not talking about, I have mixed opinions on the ones they keep on making, but there's a reason the original Jurassic Park still holds up. And it's because, Spielberg's a director who, he loves his CGI as well, but he likes practical. He likes practical set design, practical effects. It's the same with like why we're still watching War of the Rings 20 years later and saying, wow, this looks just as good as something that came out a couple years ago, because Peter Jackson leaned into that, into set design, into those mise-en-scène elements, in addition to what they needed to do with the camera. Christopher Nolan's another one too. All right, I'll stop. I have one trivia question for you all, and I'm going to say the question. It is a famous line from a movie. I'm not going to do the character impression because no one likes that guy. But I'm going to ask a question, and we are simply going to do whoever responds correctly first in the audience chat, you're getting a prize. All right? So please wait until the question is done. The question, this one's a softball. What movie has the famous line, I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse?
Oh, I'd have to think about that's. I don't know that one, Joe. Okay. Huh. You sure you don't want to do the voice?
We have a silent chat. No, I do not. Okay, here we go. There was just a lag, and Peter Conrad, congratulations! You are our first winner of free things. So, Peter, what we're going to need you to do is just mailing address, social security, credit card information. Just post it all in the chat, and we'll get this out to you. But no, we have your email, Peter. I will be in touch individually to get your information, and we will send you a box of WeVideo goodies. And with that, I turn it back over to Hans. You've just listened to him go over kind of our, the basics of film language. Now it's time to get into the nitty-gritty of production, from prepping for production, and then post-production. And then after that, we'll talk about how to do all of those things in a classroom context. Take it away, Hans.
Love it. Thank you so much, Joe. And I'm so glad you brought up some of those films that you love. I think I started as a film fan first. I remember watching The Usual Suspects back in the day and getting to the end of it and just having my mind blown, and then literally watching the whole thing again to try to understand how it was put together. I remember when I was really doing a lot of commercial filmmaking, I would be deep in a YouTube rabbit hole, and my kids would walk in and they're like, "Daddy, what are you doing?" And I would have like 6 tabs open watching YouTube videos, and they're like, "Looks like you're just watching YouTube videos." And I'm like, "No, Daddy's working. This is great. Look at how this is done." And when I taught this to high school students, a lot of the times they would say, "Oh, you've ruined how I watch films." And I hope that's not true. I hope, in fact, that your understanding of film and your understanding of creating film gets more nuanced. So you're right. We're going to dive into production next. And production is complicated. Production is important. My students were professional movie watchers. They were gobsmacked at how long it took to make even a bad film. They often came into my film class saying, we want to make a feature. And I was like, we will never make a feature in my class. We are not making a 2-hour film. My hope is that at the end of the semester, you're going to get 30 incredible seconds that you're really proud of. And they're like, 30 seconds. And we dove into production, and they understood it as we got along. But my hope, like I talked about film being a language, I hope that you also understand it and learn some tricks of filmmaking as a team activity. It's one of the most compelling educational experiences I've ever had. Communication within the team is incredibly important, and I have some ideas for activities around that. But we're going to get started by gathering equipment, and equipment is a rabbit hole you can dive into. I shot commercially on a Sony A7S. I shot on a Canon T3i, largely because I could put. I switched to the Sony A7S because of the low light. It just shot in almost moonlight, and I could put cine lenses on. But honestly, when we're starting, you're going to use the camera that you have in your pocket. You're going to use your phone. It's especially the new ones are very good. They shoot 4K. The phone app is fine. There's also apps for your phone to shoot film that let you really tweak the settings. Filmic Pro is a good one. You're going to use microphones next. I did a lot of shooting when I was shooting with an A7S. I ran a hardwired mic into the camera. If I was shooting action, I just ditched the mic and did it all my diegetic sound I got in post. Lighting is one of those ones that's a whole rabbit hole. Lighting, one of my tips that I have for lighting is if you're filming people who aren't used to being filmed, don't use lighting. They're going to freak out. If you're shining a light on their face, they're going to get very nervous. Use natural light. Shoot in a space that has big windows on the left and film that way. And use a tripod if you can. The elbow trick is just when you hold your camera and you lock your elbows like this. The string trick is a really, if you don't have if you're working with a classroom of 15 students and you don't have 15 tripods, you just take a string, wrap it around your camera, run it down to your foot, and you pull the camera up against the string, and it works like a tripod, and you can pan and tilt and do all the things really intuitively. So students love fancy cameras. As an educator, I get nervous when students are using fancy cameras. But I really enjoy mastering a camera. So the A7S, now the Mark III, is really an incredible camera. So if you're whatever tool you're using, master it. Start with the easiest one first. And when you bump into, what I recommend is you start filming with your camera, and when you and master that. And at some point when you're filming with your camera, you're going to say, oh man, I wish I could put a different lens on. I wish I could run a mic into this better, put a better mic into this. And that tells you, aha, you're ready now to upgrade to your next camera. Next, I would honestly go to a Canon DSLR. Then you're going to say, man, I wish I could use cine lenses. Oh, you're ready for something like a Sony. And then you're saying, man, I wish I could shoot, 8K 400 FPI. And then you're ready for a Red or something, right? But you can shoot great stuff on your phone, and you can certainly iterate. Your phone can be an incredible scratch pad, like for drawing as well. Script. Lots of quotes about needing a good script. One of the tricks that and I should say, there's really good screenwriting apps you can get that use the very strict screenwriting format. So scripts have a very strict format. It can be a little daunting at first when you're learning it. Certainly can be daunting when you're teaching it. Your students will be annoyed because it's very strict. But the reason that the screenwriting format is as strict as the way it is that when you're using it correctly, a minute of film is about a page of script. And so again, remember I said that filmmaking is about communicating. It's about communicating internally. If you've written 5 pages, you have 5 minutes. If you've written 400 pages, you're never going to make that. So stop. You should edit. And so and I bet you could use like a Google Doc template as well for a script. Screenwriting is fun. You could do a whole class on that. I've done a whole class. I took a college class on screenwriting. It was a lot of fun. And it's really fun to compare how what's written appears on the screen as well. But scripts are great. I would encourage you to read them. You can just buy shooting scripts on Amazon. And I would also encourage you to get one of the apps so that when you're writing, you can use the format. Okay, so if a script is helping you talk about the dialogue and, broadly speaking, what we're seeing in a film, the storyboard is really starting to communicate to the cinematographer. I used to teach storyboarding by giving, I used to do it 3 different ways. The one way I would do it was I actually would use, there used to be an app called Comic Book Creator on your iPad that would just let you make you could take a picture and you could put it into a comic book. Didn't say storyboard anywhere on it, but it was actually really helpful to be able to tell if you can tell a story in a comic book, then you can create a storyboard. So a storyboard is just a drawing or a sketch of each shot in a scene and in a sequence. And you don't have to be particularly good at drawing. The storyboards in the bottom right are quite good and nuanced. My storyboards look like the one in the middle, where it's like stick drawings and doesn't look great. You could even do it with, like I said, with a camera if you wanted to take some pictures. But it does help you identify the kinds of shots that you want. You're communicating now a vision to a cinematographer, to the people who will be using the camera, to other departments, if you will, right? So if you're remember, it's a team activity, so you're starting to communicate, how many people do I need in my shot? What are they going to be wearing? Are there certain props? What's the background? What's the set? What's my mise en scène? What's my costumes? What are the things that I need to have? I can start communicating character movement. I can start communicating to the camera folks. Am I going to need a tripod? Am I going to need a motion rig? And I'm also starting to communicate to my schedule. If I need an establishing shot that's somewhere else, we need to get it right. And the storyboard is really a chance to make your $1 million epic. Screenwriting and storyboarding is cheap. You can write scripts. You can put in your storyboard the Empire State Building, a spaceship. We can use stock footage. We can use the WeVideo stock footage library. We can think about special effects to our advantage. So storyboards and screenwriting is cheap and free and a fun way to iterate and a fun way to get feedback early on. Then we're going to refine. We're going to show it to people. We're going to get feedback. We're going to teach your students how to do feedback. We're going to read it through the lens of an audience member. We're going to read it through the lens of a storyteller. We're going to read it through the lens of of the sound department, of the props department. The editing before you shoot is cheap. Fixing things afterwards is expensive. When I'm working with students, they always say, I realize now I wish I had done an extra shot, had an extra prop, had an extra character. Too bad. We're on a schedule. You have to get your film done. Films aren't done. We just run out of time. I look at when I'm in this stage, I'm looking at, when am I showing, not telling, right? Do you have voiceover? Do you have text on screen? That's bad. Get rid of that. Show me, that opening sequence, that opening oneer from Back to the Future. We never hear anyone tell us, Doc Brown is sort of obsessed with time and is a real mess. No one ever says those words on screen. We understand it by seeing. Much better film writing. What am I over-explaining? What am I under-explaining? What do I need to set up and pay off? What are my setups and payoffs? Do I have an end that isn't earned? Cheap to innovate and refine. Do a storyboard swap. Have a group of students make a storyboard and another group of students film it, and then see how we did. Did my students who were writing the storyboard give enough information to the people who were filming it? Buy a script, watch the film, see what's on the script compared to what's on the film. Take a scene and reverse engineer it. Make a script for it. Make a storyboard for it. Keep it small. Don't start big. I often will start with 30 seconds, 20 seconds. Just write me a half-page script. Write me a 4-shot scene in a storyboard. Start small. And it's really, one of the things I love to do is to reshoot something. So take an example of a 30-second commercial, storyboard it, and reshoot it ourselves, right? This is the functional equivalent of the artist who paints the painting in the Louvre, right? Who sketches in the genre of another famous artist. Have a shooting schedule. This is really important if we're working with students so that we can stay on track. Really important if we're working with commercial clients so they know when we're going to be where. Map out who's going to need to be where, and make sure you're getting your wides, your inserts, your over the shoulders, and your establishing. And I put those in that order because you're probably going to get your establishing later. Get ready for rain. Get ready for noise. Make sure that you have permission to film where you're filming. Make sure that you have if you're filming commercially, make sure that you have someone from the school or organization with you while you're filming at all times. Make sure you're getting your wide master, shoot the whole scene once all the way through. Make sure you're getting your shot, reverse shot. Make sure you're getting your inserts. If you only do that, if you get a wide master, shot, reverse shot, your inserts, and you're establishing, you'll have something to work from. Now you're going to bring it all back. Now you're going to try to organize it. One of the tricks that I use when I'm filming is if I get a shot that I love, that I know, man, that shot was absolutely amazing, I keep the camera rolling and I just put my hand over the lens for 3 seconds, and then I take my hand away. So when I'm organizing my films, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for that shot with where I have my hand at the end, because that's going to be a good one. You're going to bring your shots in, you're going to tag them, you're going to organize them, you're going to bring them into WeVideo, and you're going to maybe tag it by day, maybe tag it by shot, reverse shot, by wide. And maybe what you're going to do is even edit them into a daily, which is just that. It's what you shot that day, so you can communicate. Remember, it's a team sport. You're going to communicate to someone else. Maybe you're communicating to your teacher. Maybe you're communicating to the client. Here's what we shot. Tag it, tag it, tag it. Organize it as soon as you can, so you don't forget what you're doing. Special effects. All right, if you're filming with special effects, you should have thought of that way back in the screenwriting storyboarding stage, because you're going to need to film intentionally for special effects. You can't figure it out afterwards. Well, Joe, you talked about some of your favorite films. There's certainly a idea in some filmmakers that they kind of wave their hands and think, yeah, you know what, we'll be able to fix this with CGI. And that's often painfully obvious. And it's, and you talked about Jurassic Park and Spielberg. And one of the things that he had was constraints. He couldn't do digital for every shot. They didn't have the tech to do it. So they had to be very intentional. We also don't have I don't have $1 million CGI budget. And so if we're doing CGI, we have to be really smart about it. We have to game plan it out. We have to be ready for it. We have to know exactly what our green screen is going to be. If we can, we're going to do it in camera, and we're going to keep it tight. We're going to keep it short. We're going to keep it focused. And we're probably will have already done a demo to make sure the dang thing works before we're doing it real with our students or for a client. I'd love to do in-camera. I love to teach in-camera effects to kids. Do something like a whip pan. A whip pan is when you whip the camera really quick and then whip it back, right? And so you can actually do a special effect where you throw a ball to yourself, for example. So you throw the ball and you whip it, then you whip the camera again and you cut on the whip. Whip pan is a really fun, easy in-camera effect. Or you do something like the stop trick, right? That was where you're filming an actor, you have the camera step out of frame, and you cut right, and then you show what's after the actor leaves, so it looks like the actor disappeared from the shot. The stop trick. Or you can use stacking, which is how stunt actors do fake slaps, for example, and stacking is how a lens has a hard time seeing things that are stacked like this, right? So I can actually swing my hand at someone and be a foot from their face. And if they turn their face as my hand is coming across because of stacking, it looks just like I've slapped them. There's an incredible reveal trick right before bullet time, in that first film, where an actor has a knife, a practical knife, and they turn and reveal the knife to camera. The knife is there the whole time. It's just a really simple reveal trick. So if we're using those CGI or green screen, we're being very intentional. If we're using an in-camera effect, we're being really smart. We're going to plan for screen captures. Screen captures are a great way to capture footage out of other sources. Maybe we have stock video that's on YouTube that we're going to use by doing a screen capture. Maybe we're showing our screen. WeVideo is a great tool for being able to record those screen captures. You might use screen captures to teach an editing technique by showing your screen. You might ask your students to record a screen capture so they can metacognate, think about what they're thinking, narrate what they're thinking. I often will separate the training part of filmmaking from the teaching part. A training part is how do we use video to edit. I'm going to make a screen capture of that so I can put it on my learning management system so my students don't have to be bored by watching me. They can watch it twice, they can watch it fast, they can watch it slow, flipped classroom style. WeVideo is great for that. I'm going to collect extra footage. I'm going to shoot multiple takes. By the time I show up and I'm filming, the really hard part is done. So what I might want to do is keep filming. If I think I got it, I'm doing the hand trick and I'm putting my hand over there and I think I've possibly got it. Shoot one more. I'm there. It's easy to do. Maybe what you want to do is do that the voiceover later, the diegetic sound later. I remember shooting a fight scene with students, and it wasn't selling. The fight scene wasn't selling. We had recorded great diegetic sound with boom mics, and so I brought each actor in individually, and we just recorded them gasping and grunting. And then I taught them Foley, and we did the celery trick, right? The celery trick with Foley is you take some celery and like a wet towel, and you record audio of the celery breaking underneath a wet towel, and it sounds absolutely gruesome when you edit that sound into your shot. So extra footage, voiceover, or faked diegetic sound, Foley, can really help. If you're looking at it, you're like, I don't, it's not selling. Think about what you can get in post. Use your phones to your advantage. Commercial films are made on iPhones. We used to go to film school because film school had cameras. Now we have amazing cameras in our pockets. When students ask me, they're like, Mr. Mundahl, I want to have a career in film. Where should I go? What should I get started? I say, don't know. Start filming, start editing, start filming. You have a free tool to shoot, record, edit, film, and publish. Make bad things for a long time. Do it. Iterate. You're going to get better. WeVideo has a great stock library. So if you need a shot you can't get, it might be in the stock video library. If you want to teach elements of filmmaking and you don't want to film it yourself, go to the stock video library. And really think about how you can. I love writing. I've never written a feature, but I've written many scripts that I will never film as an exercise. It's fun. But when I know I have to make something, less is more. Think about that one just absolutely killer shot that you want to get. What can really sell it? And when you're working with students, I often think about the difference between process and quality. So when I'm working with students, the more that I'm involved, we're going to get a better quality, but a worse process, if that makes sense. So the more the students are driving the ship, we're probably going to get a worse product, but we're going to have a lot better process. So think about where you want to lean in and what you're doing with the product on the other end. Do I have to show it at Parents' Day? Okay, maybe I want to be a little bit more involved. Or do I really care about them learning this process? Then let go of the product and focus on coaching them and helping them. If you're working for a client, you need the product to be great. And so your process is probably going to be a lot more directive. Hey, I need this to happen now. Otherwise, we're not going to get the thing that we need. We're running out of daylight. I need you over here and you over here before we can get this done. Then you're going to put it all together. You're going to make a rough cut. You're going to bring it all into WeVideo. You're going to edit something bad and rough to see how it's working together. Drop it in. We're going to hear a lot more about this, I think, later on. And you have a lot more resources in WeVideo on how to do all of these pieces. But your first cut isn't going to be perfect. You're not going to focus on sound or CGI. You're just going to put it in sequence and try to get it done. You're going to trim. You're going to split. You're going to use all of your WeVideo tools and tricks that you have to make something that you can get feedback on, you can coach your students on. Then you're going to use that green screen effect. You have these tools inside WeVideo to do. You can do your green screen. You can learn how to chroma key. Don't have your own green screen footage, no problem. You can get into the stock video library like we talked about earlier. Then we're getting feedback, then we're refining, then we're getting feedback, then we're refining. We're adding our sound. We're teaching our students how to give and receive feedback. You're teaching the sandwich method. One good thing, one piece of criticism, one good thing, right? Your students need to learn how to give and receive feedback. You can teach them the sandwich method. Here, hey, student A, I want you to watch student B's film, give them feedback using the sandwich method. Student B, I want you to integrate their feedback into your next edit. Edit sound, work on the non-diegetic sound, add the music. Soundtrack makes an incredible difference. I often will edit with a scratch soundtrack. It's not the final soundtrack, but I'm going to edit with something. I'm going to edit with the Avengers soundtrack. I'm going to edit with something from a stock audio library, just so I have something to feel from. Cuts feel different. And then I'll put in our real soundtrack later. We'll do our color correction, our grading. We're going to really work on the feeling that we want to communicate using color correction and grading. And then finally, the place where students all want to start is with our titles. If you never get to this with your students, that's totally fine. WeVideo has great title tools. Students want to make the fancy titles in the beginning and the fancy titles at the end. It's fun. Yes, that could be a whole little mini lesson to make an intro for your in-class studio. If you never get to it, it's fine. It's fine. You're communicating something with your film. Finally, you're going to think about how you're exporting it. You're going to export probably at the lowest resolution possible to iterate when you're getting feedback, and your final high resolution for your final product. If you're looking to share something right away, often with students, you may be able to share with your LMS or Google Drive. When I'm working with clients, I'll put something unlisted on YouTube really quick. They can share it internally, and then I'll take it down. Vimeo has great audience feedback tools, creator feedback tools. And one activity that I love doing with students as a final project to put it all together is you have your students work in teams to pitch, conceive, pre-production, shoot, and edit something for an internal client at the school. I did this, the school that I was at had a campus store. I had the two groups. I worked this all out ahead of time with the campus store director. I said, I have a group of students, they want to make a commercial for you. The campus store director thought this was the greatest thing ever. I had two groups of students make a pitch to them. So first they had to come up with an idea for a commercial. Then they had to make a pitch deck. They had to pitch it to the campus store director. The campus store director picked one of the two teams. And then that team had to go into pre-production, plan, shoot, edit, deliver a final product to the campus store director. And interestingly, I thought they were two great ideas. I thought one idea was better than the other, but the campus store director picked the less good idea because that team was more professional. They interacted with her more professionally, and so she had a higher level of confidence that they would deliver something good, which they did. I had both teams make things anyway, but it was a great learning experience, which I'm happy to talk about more. All right, Joe, I think I'm about done with the content. I think we have a couple of minutes for Q&A, and with that, I want to turn it back over to you and tell me how I'm doing. I've been talking for a long time. Tell me.
Yeah, thank you so much. We are about halfway through our full session now. I am going to have another opportunity here for more goodies coming to one lucky winner that are showered with the WeVideo logo. In the meantime, if you do have any questions about anything Hans has presented, please sound off in the chat. We are monitoring that right now. So, like we did before, have a question for you. I'm going to ask the question, and then we'll first response that's correct. You're winning swag. This one is harder. So, actually, we're going to answer his question from Beth first. Hans, how do you keep students interested through the storyboarding process. Sometimes that can feel tedious to them. Oh, yes, it can. And they also hate drawing, or they think they can't draw.
Yes, totally.
So
Totally.
sometimes that can feel tedious to them, and they can lose interest in the overall project. Go ahead.
It's such a great question, and you're absolutely right. I'll do that a couple of different ways. First of all, I'll model my bad. I think of myself as a pretty good filmmaker. I'm bad at drawing. So the first thing I'll do is I'll model that for my students by drawing literal stick figures, circles with smiley faces, and circles with hands. And yes, they want to be spontaneous when they're filming. That's a great point. And the question I would ask is how much storyboarding is necessary for what they're doing. It might be that you want to teach storyboarding because it's a part of filmmaking. That's great. But maybe what they need to do actually is, and if they're writing, shooting, editing the whole thing, then storyboarding might not be super necessary. Especially if they know that they're getting a wide, a shot, reverse shot, and an insert. Then storyboarding might not be that necessary. Now, where it becomes necessary is, I would say, 3 scenarios. One, if you are giving the storyboard over to someone else to shoot. So if I'm conceiving the film but not shooting it, I need to communicate it. 2, if I make something and it's not great, right? So if I make something and it's not great because I'm spontaneous, so maybe what you want to do is say, hey, great, I know you want to be spontaneous. That's awesome. Okay, great. Go shoot a 2-person conversation where you're talking about a teacher and a student are talking about the test. Great. Go shoot that with no storyboard. Is it good? Right? Are you able to complete it? Are you able to stay on track? Was the camera person aware of the shots that you need to get? Great. Now go back. Okay, how could we have made that better? Well, maybe a storyboard would have helped, right? So sometimes you want to do it on the front end. Sometimes you want to do it on the back end with natural consequences. And the third reason you would storyboard is if you need to communicate something to a client. So in that example I gave of the campus store thing, you wanted to send the storyboard to the client so they could lock it off and say, no, you're not showing enough product. I want more product in my final film. So that's some tips on storyboarding. I would always model bad drawings that communicate effectively, and because I'm an experiential educator, is I would tend to help them understand that it makes your film better to the extent that it's necessary. And it might not be that necessary at first. It might be something that they get to later. Can I keep going, Joe, or do you want me to?
Yeah, no. We can. So this is part of the filmmaking process. It's a cliffhanger, right? So the trivia is waiting. We're building up that anticipation. So we can go ahead with Aaron's question.
What do you think is the minimum number of hours it would take for a student to film a 5-minute film? How good do you want it to be? And how complex? A 5-minute film is ambitious. That to me sounds like a final project of a semester class. And how complicated is the film? So those are all, I realize I'm not answering. So if, let's say you wanted to do a 5-minute film that involves 2 or 3 scenes in 2 or 3 locations, that would be a great final project for a semester-long class. I would expect that to take 2 to 3 weeks. If you're writing, storyboarding, shooting, editing, sound, the whole shebang. 2 to 3 weeks meeting, a couple of times a week in a regular academic schedule. If I'm making a 5-minute film for a client, that's probably a 2-day, 8-hour days of filming, not counting pre-production, storyboarding and stuff that would happen offline. What advice do you have to Joe, and chime in? You know about these.
Yeah, no, we're going to cover this too in our next session. I taught a film course, and that a short film was our capstone project, and I think Hans hit the nail on the head. It really does come down to quality, because I mean you make a film as fast as you want, but I think also for them to get the most out of it, there's a lot of building blocks that need to happen to get to a point where they feel comfortable and are producing cool stuff. So go ahead with the next question, Hans.
That's a great point. You have to make something cool at some point, otherwise you're going to really lose people's interest. And so getting that down to the tightest thing you can is often, yeah. What advice do you have to help keep track of multiple teams at once, moving through the production process at varying paces? You give yourself a job. You're the executive producer, right? And so you make an org chart where the director reports to you. You're the executive producer, because the executive producer in the film is the person who's in charge of the money. You functionally have the money. If you're the educator, you're in charge of time, gear, resources. You're going to have those directors report to you and this is also a great formative assessment tool, right? So, hey, I need a production schedule for you by Tuesday. You're the director. I'm the executive producer. You don't have that. Well, I know you're going to be off track, and also you're getting a bad grade. So the good news is you have both filmmaking tools and educational tools to keep them on track. You have these, hey, you're not going to be filming until your storyboards are done. You're not going to have storyboards until your scripts are done. And I would often, if I'm working with a team, I'm going to give them roles within that team. You're going to have a director, and you're going to probably have some slash roles where people are going to be filling multiple chairs in that team. But I want them to roll up to me as the executive producer.
Awesome. Thanks, Hans. And Hans will be here in the chat. So if there are any more questions that come up, please don't hesitate. We're going to get started in a second with building your film curriculum. But before that, our question. All right. I think this one's a little bit more difficult, but we'll see if I'm proven right or wrong. The trivia question for every WeVideo swag item we have: what was the first Marvel film to be nominated for a Best Picture Academy Award?
Which one should have been nominated?
No, there's one. Yeah, first, and pretty sure the only one, because Academy tends to sour face the superhero world. It is not Spider-Man. Good guess. It should have been Avengers Endgame. Superman, Mark. That is DC. Christina Ash. Now, well, we won't count spelling. That's okay. Christina Ash is the winner. Congratulations. We will be sending you a reward, and I will be in touch. The answer: Black Panther.
Joe, thinking about filmmaking as communication, I think about a lot of the tentpole films. Honestly, when there's good ones, you see that communication went really well, and what you hear afterwards about tentpole films that I think about The Last Jedi, a tentpole film that went way off the rails, and is empirically a bad film. like I don't mean to trigger Star Wars people, but
careful, Hans. This is not the time or place for that discussion.
But I think from a cinematography, storytelling, screenwriting standpoint, it is a bad film. Technically, it is a film that achieves heights that I will never achieve. But I think that's you can see the effect of internal communication gone terribly, terribly wrong when billions of dollars are on the line. And so, that's an example of how the question about how to keep people on track, that's a really important question and the right question to ask, and one to focus on using your formative assessment tools and your team making tools, because Black Panther is a remarkable film, not only because of the cinematography and the writing and the acting, and also because whatever was happening internally at Marvel helped make that happen, didn't hinder it. And so you bring up some really great points, and I'm psyched that you highlight that film.
Awesome. Well, let's jump into building your film curriculum. So I have why am I giving this presentation? I have a past life as a teacher. I taught 9 through 12. Sorry, I'm just getting to it. Taught 9 through 12 ELA for 5 years. in 3 different states. So it's a great experience. 3 of those 5 years, I also taught an 11th and 12th grade film studies elective course. So what I'm going to talk about now is how to take everything that Hans has covered and use it in the classroom. And what I really want you to walk away with, and what I've tried to structure this presentation as, is you also don't need to be in the position that I was. And what I mean by that is you don't need to be teaching a full film course or a media course to do some of these things. A lot of what we're going to talk about, I've built it around the idea of if you were going to implement a full course, but it can be a mini unit, it can be lessons. There's tons of things we can do that incorporate media and traditional film to teach students really like critical skills that they need to kind of dissect the world that we all live in today. So also, WeVideo, we hear a lot that it's like, well, I'm not too comfortable with film, or I didn't study film. You do not need to be a film major to teach film in the classroom, or to just teach media, because you experience media every day too. So things we're going to cover. Talk a little bit about film studies versus media studies. So like I said, I taught this course for 3 years in the Chicago public school system. I started the course it was titled Film Studies, but I gradually moved it towards like a more comprehensive media studies course, so that we could expand beyond just like the idea of traditional film. We're going to talk about some building blocks for the course, how to structure the course or unit, some learning objectives, because I know that's something too that comes up with film instruction. I think we've gotten a little bit better, in 2025, especially with how much we're saturated with media. But I know back when I was teaching, like there was always still, even an elective, like there's the idea of, oh, well, movie day. We don't have that challenge as much. But we're still, it's still that idea of, oh, movie, don't have to do anything. So how do we tie it to key learning objectives? How do we tie it to Bloom's taxonomy? Because everything you do when analyzing and evaluating film, when creating a film, it's hitting every single level of that pyramid. So we'll also talk about some do's and don'ts, some things that went terrific in my class and some things that went horribly wrong. And then I have a couple of lesson ideas for you to leave you with that hopefully you can think about implementing. Quick reminder, I did 9 through 12. So a lot of what I'm sharing, it's from that high school experience. But what you'll see and what we'll talk about is that a lot of this stuff, it can be scaffolded down to a younger population. And the great thing about like film language in general is we get more movies, but the film language never changes. Like that film language has been the same forever and ever and ever. So a lot of this stuff you can say, well, I'm not going to use that movie that's being given as an example, but you can use any movie you want. So why a film class or a media class? So I mean, first and foremost, media consumption, as we all know, it does not have a brake pedal. It is everywhere. It's quadrupled. I feel like as a result of COVID, even though I think even if we lived in a timeline where COVID didn't happen, where we were going with all the streamers dominating the media world, I think that would have eventually happened anyway. We've myself included, guilty. We've got right. It's like, oh, I'm not going to pay for cable anymore. And I don't. But then I need that Netflix subscription, and I took Hulu. Hey, got to get that quality content from HBO Max. Apple's making premiere content. I'm going to do that as well. Well, they moved all of my like comfort shows to Peacock. I'm going to get that. Oh, and I need YouTube TV for sports. So I'm now paying more than I was for cable. But that's kind of where we are in our streamer world. We're also in a time, for a long time, movies were in the spotlight, and if you are close to filmmaking, you know that we are just in a beautiful time for television. There are terrific television shows, and some not so good ones. If you found the Netflix model where we get 20 questionable things and then a season of Stranger Things. But Media consumption is everywhere. Your students they're on the apps, they're on the streamers. So it is more important than ever. Literacy too. I mean, has a different meaning than it did 25 years ago. Like traditional literacy, being able to read and write, that obviously is first and foremost the most important. But there is this idea of being digitally literate. And that is a reason for having a multimedia course. And then film, it's an incredibly accessible medium for your students, and it's one that has a lot of surprises they might not expect, because students are, they've grown up in this world of media consumption. They're used to movies as sort of just that kind of relax, chill, turn off the brain, when in fact there's a lot that goes into making a film. There's a lot of language behind the film, so there's a lot of opportunity to use it in an educational context. This is one of my favorite quotes from a student of mine I had when I was teaching, and I'll preface by saying I was never the teacher. I don't get I didn't hold my head high on making anyone miserable or making anyone sad to come to my class. But I did appreciate this, because this was a student who came in very much so with the idea that and when I was teaching this film class, let's say too, it was an elective, but it was an elective in the sense that about half the students I had chose to take it or elected to take it. Half of the students needed a class on their schedule and were put into it. And we had a lot of fun no matter who they were. But this particular student was one who came in with the conception that we were just going to watch movies every day and not do anything. And it was going to be awesome. And I like to think he still had a good time, but he was also challenged along the way as well. So, and I think that's, there is a mindset, like I said, with film and movies that it's entertainment value. But there's a lot of thinking and planning that goes into it. So I want to mention too, like I said, I started the course as a film studies course. So it focused specifically on cinema. We were analyzing individual films, thinking about all those things that Hans went over. I realized as the course progressed that I needed it to be broader in scope, and also that my students, they loved movies, but they weren't just consuming movies. So they were consuming television. They were on their phones, consuming, social media scrolls, short videos. So I needed to broaden it so that we could also cover like all forms of media. So not just film, not just television, a little bit of social media, journalism, advertising. That's actually by year 3. That's how we were starting the course. And it also really helped me like create building blocks because having them just start with a full feature length film and analyze, I mean, as well as I do, they're not getting as much value as they could from that, because it's just kind of just throwing them into the deep end of the pool. So, or their groans when we were starting and spending, an entire week analyzing an image. Yes. But it was setting up those building blocks to get us to a point where we weren't just, we weren't just passively looking at a piece of digital media, regardless of the length. So segue into building blocks. When you're teaching media too, and if you want to work your way up to a full film, this is really how I approached it, and how we kind of built up the ability to analyze a film at large. So we would start with images, and we would really kind of work around the rhetorical visual language, the rhetorical triangle. Look at advertisements, start looking at still frames from film. That's where, especially with mise-en-scène, you can leverage a lot of still frames, because still frames are, mise-en-scène started on stage, started on theater. It's about placement of items, placement of objects, organization. So using images and analyzing images from that lens is super helpful. Then we would look at how these images create a shot. We spent a lot of time looking at, Hans brought up one shots. I am a one shot plebe. I love one shots and directors that use them. They and like I mentioned in the chat earlier, directors, they're ego driven. They want to one up each other. So one shots are used a lot. They're still considered very trendy. You have some, and then you have these directors just doing incredible one shots. I will say this year, Sinners. If you've seen Sinners, there is a musical one shot in there that is the coolest one shot I've ever seen. So highly recommend Sinners by Ryan Coogler. That is at the top of my letterbox list right now for 2025. But we would spend a lot of time looking at we would look at like a shot from Gravity. I actually used that one. I also used Coogler is someone who really likes one shots, so I would use like the 4.5 minute fight scene from Creed, and then we would compare that to a scene from Inception, where so you have this 4.5 minute just single shot, and then you have this similar like 3.5 minute scene from Inception that has like 150 shots in it all at once. And we would start with just what's the difference, and what's the difference between these two things, and we'd slowly work our way towards that entry point of understanding how a shot is the building block of a scene and the scene is a building block of a film. It was particularly helpful, in making that. As an English teacher, we're looking at pages and chapters and books and trying to make that correlation. But then we move on to scene analysis. From there, move into acts. And I think those of you who are teaching screenwriting and want to teach screenwriting, like understanding act structure is super, super important and super helpful from a screenwriting perspective. And then we would move into the full film. Structuring your course or unit, some recommendations. So like I mentioned, my course was a full year course. So semester one, we would really focus on elements of media. Then semester two, I would move into genre and meaning. So the first quarter, introduction to media, visual rhetoric, script writing 101. I really wanted to set the stage with screenwriting, because screenwriting, I am fascinated by screenwriting. I think it's an incredible format. It's a very different format that students are not used to. So they are not used to, like, even when writing, they're not used to being able to not use first person. You're stuck to third person. I think too, what's great about this, especially if we think about crossing this over with English language arts or history, or other courses, there was a time in film, in our film history, where scripts really were just a map of what to do for a film. But as we've moved through the decades, we've really seen scripts become not only a map. I mean, they are directional. Like, Susan opens the door, looks at John, says this thing, but they've already also become very literary. And with our wonderful internet, and this is an easy way to find a script. I mean, you can find almost every script that you want to read online. Just type the name of the film you want, followed by screenplay PDF. Most of the production companies are putting their scripts on the internet, especially if they're up for consideration for a Screenplay Academy Award. A lot of them are submitting to educational sites too, because they want the screenplays available. So it's very easy to grab a script from a film or short film that you can use with your students and for an educational experience. So we do that. We'd focus on shots versus scenes. Quarter two, we'd move into a lot of the stuff that Hans discussed in Film Essentials Part 1. So the mise en scène, the cinematography, the sound design. Sound design was always one of my favorites, just because of how it impacts tone. We'd spend some time, I'd have them write about something that made them really happy while they're listening to what's that song? The Sarah McLachlan song, right? Arms of an Angel. The one from the commercials. And then they'd have to write about something something less happy while listening to Walking on Sunshine. And then we'd start, our first kind of analysis, looking. They'd each take a director. They'd look at that director's films. They'd do a mini analysis of that director's style. So starting to understand how certain people shape their perspective in film. The second half, we'd focus on genre. So, and that allows us to really, what I loved about that is it allows us to make more of the cultural connection and looking at how media impacts us as a society. So we look at genres, look at genre bending. I feel like now more than ever, we're in a world where it's like, we used to have, this is a horror film, this is a thriller film. Now your Netflix is saying, we thought you might like this horror film with a dose of thriller inspired by a comedy because you watched Arrested Development season 2. So then we'd start getting a lot more advanced with script writing. So longer scripts, to the point that was made earlier about like how long does it take to make a 5-minute short film. This is where we're working towards. We're not just writing a segment of a script. We're writing a 3 to 4 page script to get going there. And then quarter 4, we're moving into more of television, documentaries, and then our capstone short film project, which was taking an original idea, storyboarding it, writing the script, going through revisions, filming it, editing it, and then we would have our own Oscars ceremony. Objectives, skills, and standards. I won't spend too much time on this because we'll send this, like I said, we're going to send this to you as well. But on the left, I have the objectives that I was using for the course, but I do just want to emphasize because I know I needed to show, especially I needed to show my administration every week that what we were doing was geared towards learning objectives and skills and standards. So for me, I was connecting all of the course material to the ELA Common Core standards, which was easy, to be honest, because there was so much crossover. But I think too, it's important to understand that we all turn to Bloom's taxonomy, and things that you're doing in a film course, when you're identifying elements of film, when you're evaluating a director's style or directorial choices in a film, when you are writing your own content as a continuation of a film or as an original content, when you're creating your own media, we're hitting all those levels of Bloom's taxonomy. So I think that's really important, especially as we continue to advance how media is used in the classroom, is making that connection, because I know it can be a burden sometimes, or feel like a burden, especially when we're still working within the confines of standardized testing and skills needed for that. But everything that we need to address with Bloom's taxonomy can be addressed through the lens of media identification and analysis and creation. Some do's and don'ts. It's really the difference between being Tom when he was, for like the 5 minutes he was happy in 500 Days of Summer, and then being crying Emma Stone into ice cream. So some do's: take advantage of the buy-in. There's nothing easier than that multimedia buy-in. I mean, I always found that students are always going to love to watch that, watch something, see something, connect with that. Don't focus on your own cineloves. So this is a mistake I think we all make. And I was young in my teaching. I was a second year teacher, but I had gone to a completely new state. So it was like first year part 2. And I love film. So I said, I really want my students to get a holistic experience. We really need to go decade by decade. They really need to see it from its origin up until modern day. School started the day after Labor Day. I think, yeah, it was the day after Labor Day. I think the entire course had been changed by like the second week of October. That did not work. And I think part of it was because I tried, one, because I and super interested in film, and I obviously I wanted them to be interested as well. But I needed to spend some time thinking more about films that, one, had a little bit more universal appeal, two, they could relate to more, and three, I still think there's value in where did it start, but um, using shorter clips. And surprise, surprise, a 17-year-old wasn't as interested as I thought they would be in movies before they were even called talkies. But there were some things there were some things we were able to watch. A lot of interest around George Méliès's trip to the moon, because it's just so weird in the best way. Would do some film noir, some film noir scenes as well. Some great subtext lessons with some of Billy Wilder's film noir from the 40s. This guy was a fantastic writer, and that was still an era of film where it was scripts were very, very dialogue heavy. So you were focusing on kind of like really witty, subtext laden dialogue. And then, would show some scenes. I did try to cheat the system. I wanted a silent film, and I said, you know what? I'll show the artist. It came out in 2010. It's modern day's version of a silent film. I taught second, third, and fourth period film. Second period was by far the best class in terms of just like behavior and buy-in. It was an absolute disaster in second period. So that was just kind of a buckle up. We're not changing this. We just got to get through it. So, I think, your students, but it was a learning curve for me in terms of what could be used, what resonated the best, and what I needed to choose. Do treat visual literacy like a Lego set, like we've talked about a couple times, building blocks. I really tried not to rush into anything, even if you're doing a short unit. I think you can spend a day or two really setting the stage instead of rushing the process. Do adopt easy to use editing tools. And look, I know I'm the WeVideo shill. I'm not going to go there, but I could do a whole nother presentation about how I wish I had known about WeVideo when I was teaching. Whatever you use, just like make sure you have easy to use editing tools at the ready. And then I back in the day I was fighting with iMovie and Windows Movie Maker, and it was just a pain. They have their phones at their phones in their hands now. Like, take advantage of those. And honestly, too, don't discount students' intuition. Like, I can say, from being at WeVideo, we hear all the time from customers where it's like, I was a little worried about teaching film, but honestly, I had my students start editing, and they can do things I didn't even know how to do, because they've grown up in that world. They've grown up in the social media world where you're editing everything on your phone. So there is a lot of intuition there that honestly, like, probably none of us really had when we were going through school. And then last but not least, I want to leave you guys with a couple of ideas. So I got 5 ideas. And like I said, these can be scaffolded down to and based on what grade you're teaching. They are I tried to pick a couple that kind of span the whole evaluation and creation process. The movies, you have endless movies to choose from in terms of to do something like this with. But towards the beginning of the year, when we were looking at mise en scène, we would do a still frame project. So we would actually we watch a movie where we were able to analyze some elements of mise en scène, but then as sort of that building block mentality, their first media project would be to create a story using only still frames. So no movement at all, just images to tell a succinct story. The advantage too that you have with this is, it can be school based. So I would just have them, going around in the classroom or in the hallways to tell a simple story without having to worry about them doing it outside of school or find any, exotic locations to film. It's like, tell your story. You're in school. What is the story there? Second idea, this was one of my favorites. The Truman Show was a big hit. in our media class, and we used it after we had looked at advertising and how media is consumed. We would watch the Truman Show, and then as an initial entry point into script writing, we would look we would look at the end of the Truman Show when he walks out of his faux world. I hope I'm not spoiling that for anyone. If I am, go watch the Truman Show. It's amazing. So he leaves, the movie ends, and we would look at the end of the script, and we'd use that as a way to talk about the basic formatting of screenwriting, with slug lines, third person, where to capitalize things, and then they would create an extension. So when Truman leaves and the movie ends, what does he do when he's outside of that world? A lot of interesting things. Some very dark stories. There's ones where Truman he finds the love of his life, he lives his life. There's others where he goes down a pretty big revenge path. It's very interesting. So, but you can see like something like this you can use with tons of different films. You can also do this too, especially for teachers of younger students. Pixar is awesome. So, and I know they've fallen off a little bit over the last couple of years because they keep on returning to sequels, and I don't know if everyone wants like Cars 6, but they are still top of the mountain for storytelling, and their feature films are fantastic. But also, if you look up their short film collection and there's internet repositories of their short films. Their short films are fantastic, and they're great for teaching basic story structure too. Like even if you're just trying to go like the story arc, Pixar short films, 100% recommend. Okay. We're running close on time, so 3 more ideas. Great directors. We'd take like 25 different directors, have students take them. What I liked about this is when we were into the course, we had already gone over all the kind of basic elements of film language. So now it was taking one director, researching their style, and how they create films, and then taking actually a scene from one of their films and doing a short mini breakdown of that scene based on their style. Loved that. A lot of interesting scene dissection, and it also gave us an opportunity to expose folks to so many different filmmakers. This clip analysis is one of the hardest things we would do in the class. So I would not do this till late in the school year, since I was doing the full course. It could be used and pared down in a short unit. But we watched The Shawshank Redemption, which was always well received, because I feel like The Shawshank Redemption is one of those films that collectively, as just humans, like we don't fully know why it's amazing, and like we have some ideas. Like it's very clear, like the basic things that make a movie great, but it's like, why is this movie like so phenomenal? No matter who you are, this is a big favorite, and it was one we spent a lot of time on, because Frank Darabont, great writer, based off of Stephen King's short story, fantastically made film. So there was so much to pull apart scene wise. So this is kind of where we would sort of reach the summative point of our ability to analyze and evaluate clips. And we would watch this film, and then we'd take a clip, and they would do a shot by shot breakdown of the scene. So with their own personal commentary. We would also take this opportunity to look at the script from the opening to Shawshank. And then and what I'd have them do, I'd print out the script, give them the script. And again, this is when they were well versed at this point in shots and that sort of film terminology. But they'd go through the first 2 or 3 pages before ever having seen the film, and they basically diagram how they would shoot it based on what they're reading. So, are they going to use a long shot here? Are they going to use a medium shot? Are they going to pan? Are they going to zoom? So we'd go through and basically map out the first 2 to 3 pages of the script, and then we'd watch it and see how Frank Darabont chose to do it based on the script and his direction. It was a really fun time, and it was, it took a lot to get to that point, but it was really interesting just to, diagram that based on how the script is flowing, and then see intentional decisions that the directors made. And then last but not least, it was the capstone. So the short film. And if you're doing a mini unit, or you don't need to do it, like the film doesn't have to be super super long. I'll be honest, we didn't get to 5 minutes with these short films. Like I think for us, usually around three or less. And this was after like a lot of, we would do the script writing. So we would do the standard, as Hans mentioned, like the industry standard is that 1 page of a screenplay is equatable to 1 minute of film. So we would do a lot of back and forth revisions and storyboarding on their scripts, so we could get that into a place where they had it as concise as possible. And you'll find too, when you start teaching screenwriting and just the idea of making a film, because this is so new to them, there's a lot to think about, and there's going to be some repetition in the screenplay that you can cut down on, because it was like I still remember I had students who were going to do a conversation. This was early on in the process. They're like, oh, we want to have a conversation. So how do I film this? And I was like, all right, well, you're going to have them talking, but they're like, well, yeah, but how do we film this? Because I'm going to have the camera pointing at them. So like, what do I do? I'm like, well, you film the same scene like 15 times, and then you're going to edit between the two, and you're going to pick the one you like the best. So it was kind of those moments that's like, oh, and it also creates a lot more appreciation for the amount of work that goes into, like, there's a reason our feature films take 2 years to make. So that was by far, when we got to this point, it was awesome. And we would have kind of a showcase of all the films and do a award ceremony. So it was really interesting to see the ideas that came out of that. And this was a while ago. So now it really is even easier to like get filming going, just because of how our technology has progressed, both with our phones and just a myriad of editing abilities that are available. And that is it for me. So I can take a couple of questions if there are any questions, and then also I'm going to give more free stuff away. All right, I'm gonna keep going. Haven't been a teacher in a while, so I'm I'm not used to the uncomfortable silence anymore. Oh, good question. How do you feel about the acting in analyzing performance? Yeah, there's some interesting acting. Yeah, it's very difficult. And I mean, like, you have to give and take. And a lot of, I'm not going to pretend I wasn't a theater. I wasn't a theater professor or a theater teacher. And wasn't necessarily, grading them too harshly on acting performance. Also because that is something that, like, a lot of our students are just uncomfortable with, and not trained in. So I think we would have a section that I approached it more as like it's kind of like when you ask in English class, we would oftentimes do some drawing, and I was like, we would do like character studies, and you're drawing some pictures to represent symbols, that sort of deal. And it's like, well, look, I'm not grading your drawing, but don't just draw stick figures. So, and it was kind of like that when it came to acting and the performance aspect there. It's like, look, I'm not gonna grade. I'm not gonna grade your performance like that, but don't get in there and deadpan the entire time. I tend to have several theater. I meant Hollywood actors, and the theater kids are all over this. Maybe I'm not. Oh, okay. So you meant like how would we analyze like the choices that actors are making in the films? So we would do. I mean, we would do that as part a little bit as part of like me like the just when we were teaching mise en scène and like stage performance and organization. We would look at that a little bit with actors and like how but to be quite honest, I didn't focus on that too much. It was more so like how the film was coming together, with a little bit of like, hey, yes, um this is such a great film as well because of, I mean, Shawshank's a great example. Like there's phenomenal performances in that film. We would focus on it a little bit in Truman Show too, because I think even back then, Jim Carrey wasn't a household name, but they knew Jim Carrey as like the funny guy. And then you have him completely turn off and become this like very dramatic actor. So I think we would talk about that. Spend a little time on method acting as well, just like what that is and how these actors get lost in the character. But that's really kind of all I focused on from an acting standpoint. I'm gonna push this along. I'm gonna be here though. We'll answer any questions that anyone has in the audience chat. Trivia. I got one more for us. And it's related to Pixar. So same as before. I'll ask a question. First person to get it, will get a gift from us. Which Pixar movie was the first fully computer animated film? There's either a lag or we find. Oh nope, never mind. Stacy Vincent, congratulations. It is Toy Story. It is Toy Story. Stacy, I will be in touch. You know what? Before I pass it over to Ryan, just for fun, let's do one more. This one has three possible answers because it's a three-way tie. So, your last opportunity to take home WeVideo valuables. Um, which film, any of the three, holds the record for most Oscar wins? You unfortunately cannot win, Hans. Sheena Schwartz. Sheena Schwartz, you are the winner. You got one. I am just curious if any of the answers so the first is Titanic. So congratulations, Sheena. Okay, I saw another Lord of the Rings. Good job, Aaron. And then yes. Oh, Stacy, Stacy, you already won. But yes, no, Stacy is correct. Number three, Ben-Hur. So Ben-Hur, Lord of the Rings, the Return of the King, the last one, and then Titanic are the three most nominated for Academy Awards. Yeah, you would think too. So, all right. I am eating into Ryan Kochevar's time. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. Like I said, I will be in the chat. I'm going to turn it over to him now, and he's going to go over everything we've talked about in the lens of WeVideo, and some tips and tricks for using our tools.
Hey, thanks, Joe. And maybe you can answer this. You can answer me this somehow. But I know we're scheduled to go to 2:30. That's only 12 minutes from now. Sorry, Pacific time. I'm joining you all from the San Francisco Bay Area. So I can either do a extreme crash course of these tools in 10 minutes, or we can spend a little bit longer with.
We're scheduled till the top of the hour, so you're
Oh,
good.
we are. Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, go forth and prosper.
Perfect. I misread that time then. So that's great. Hello, everybody. I'm Ryan Kochevar. I'm the director of customer marketing here at WeVideo. I just want to say for the last three presentations, it's been great to be a viewer and an audience member just like you, because I learned a ton. I am not a film educator. I am a former educator. I did teach elementary school for a number of years and was an after-school programs director, specifically teaching kids maker education. That is one of my passion areas, and film fits into that sort of ethos of maker education, which I love finding the overlaps in what I had done with kids previous to my work here at WeVideo, and on this topic that we've been sharing all about today. My goal for this session, as I figure out how I'm going to share, here we go, is to take you into the WeVideo product, right? And discuss some tips and tricks. Hans talked a lot about, and Joe did as well, putting together the production of film, from the script writing, the storyboarding, to the filming, to the editing. And I'm hoping to show you and bring to life some of the ways you might use a product like WeVideo to accomplish post-production of your films. Now, I will say, one of the reasons why I love WeVideo is that it is a tool, a video editing tool, and much more than that, a multimedia creation tool that is built for educators and for students. And so first and foremost, I want to acknowledge that there was a comment left earlier in a discussion with Joe that Hans mentioned, right? Finding a tool that ramps your students or yourself into the video editing process, which is really important, and exploring perhaps more complex tools or more leveled up software, if you will, as you begin to hit that wall and you're thinking about, oh, well, what more can I do with video editing specifically? So for me, as I take you through the WeVideo tools, this might be something that might seem oversimplistic to you at first, but it really, the goal here is to share a few tips and tricks of our editor that you might apply in your classroom when you're teaching film, or you're teaching students how to edit, you're teaching students how to add effects, and that sort of thing. So I just wanted to make sure that I'm connecting as much of what Joe and Hans talked to you about our editor specifically. So we're going to cover a number of different editing features of the platform. So we're going to talk about transitions. We're going to talk about the picture-in-picture, the Ken Burns effect. I'm going to show you a little bit about chroma key and green screen. We're going to talk about speed ramps. We're going to talk about color and filters. And then I'm going to get into some audio tips and tricks. And then I'll do one final example of how I've blended some of these different features together to make a pretty cool edit. Now, for my purposes, for these presentations, I'm going to go back and forth between the slides, share with you a couple of ideas about how these editing features fit into filmmaking and storytelling. And then I'm going to jump into the product and show you how I built it. And then I'll just run a quick demo about where you can find the tools and how you're going to be able to build these inside of the WeVideo editor as you get making. So, and one thing also to note that, again, you can be as minimal with your use of these tools and as maximal. So you can take it from a very beginner's perspective, or you can apply it in a more intermediate or advanced perspective, and wherever you are in your journey of editing. I'm sticking more to sort of the just show and tell sort of phase of how you might approach our editing tools. But I'm hoping to provide you ways that you could see where you could take this in an advanced way. And having said that as well, I'm going to be using almost exclusively entirely stock media in my examples. So you might not be that might not be what you will be doing inside your classroom. You're going to be wanting to capture footage from your students. You're going to be importing media. So I'm not going to be necessarily taking you through those flows, but because of the way that I'm able to demo here with you and show you the different tips and tricks, it will be using stock media. I'll show you how, if you're not familiar with that, where to find all those things and how to put those into your timeline and begin editing them. So I wanted to start with transitions, a very simple editing technique. And Hans mentioned this earlier about the use of transitions and kind of your as you're stitching shots together, or you're just stitching scenes together, using transitions to create those visual interest and signify story elements. That can be used to blend clips or signal the passage of time. Some popular transitions inside WeVideo, very simple ones, the crossfade or the dip to black, right, can signal something else is coming, or it can provide a fade in or a fade out, signaling the beginning or the end of a shot or a scene of a film. And then just speaking generally as a rule, using transitions sparingly and with purpose. So I've done activities where we've done you make a film make a clip or make a shot or make an edit as messy as possible by using as many transitions as possible to see how it can sort of chop up and make the scene or the edit really sloppy, so to speak, and then using them sparingly to see how the effect can translate to something that's visually interesting to the viewer. So I will, after the next slide on picture-in-picture, we'll get in and look at how we can make transitions work with that other added effect of picture-in-picture. And then as we build our other edits, I will be building in some different transitions, sticking mostly to crossfade and dip to black, because those to me, again, are very simple, but they're also very effective and used most commonly within our software. And what I see most educators that have students that they're instructing in film to make their first edits or beginning edits, that's something that is used. Those transitions are some that are used most frequently. So the next kind of effect is the picture-in-picture effect. So this is where you're overlaying a video clip or an image on top of another clip. You're adding commentary to illustrate a point. What Hans was talking earlier about
all those last
screen recording to capture other content from a third-party source, or using that as a teacher to instruct in a specific technique on filmmaking or give an instructional point or something of that nature. You can do that with picture-in-picture by recording yourself and overlaying that video on top of another video. You can show different angles of a scene with picture-in-picture, or you can show a presenter with slides, right, as you're talking through some things. Now, these aren't all related specifically to filmmaking, but you can see that the effect of overlaying one video on top of another just provides another a visual point of interest for the viewer to get a more in-depth, maybe added effect of the scene, shot, video, instructional clip, whatever it is that you're creating within the editor. So now I'm going to take us over into the product, and I'm going to go ahead and share this tab. If you don't see me, I have had trouble in the past remembering to click that share other tab. So if you don't see what I'm talking about, please just let me know in the chat and I make sure to click that button. So I'm also going to put a spotlight on this so you can see it a little bit better. There we go. Okay, cool. Just wanted to make it bigger for you, make my head smaller, make the editor bigger. It's a much better experience for you as the viewer. So we're inside WeVideo. If you're not familiar with our editor, or haven't used it a lot, or haven't used it with students, this is your basic interface of our full featured editing timeline. I've got a number of pieces of media on here that we're going to go through as we talk about the tips and tricks. And there's what I plan to do is show you the demonstration of what I've done, and then I'll delete the media and kind of go through the process of creating it where that makes sense. So for this first one, this is a picture-in-picture with both a text overlay and some transitions. So Hans was talking about adding text overlays. If that's something that you want to build into your film, that's really easy to do with the editor. We have a whole bunch of fun text styles. We released our new text engine a couple years ago, including transparent text and some really neat ways of changing the font and changing the style of the text. So again, just little creative elements, little tips in there for you to enhance the visual interest and the visual quality of your film or your footage. But here's an example of, and I'm going to make the preview window bigger here. You can do that by easily hovering over this little faint bar in between the preview window and your timeline. And I'll make the preview window bigger so we can see the clip, and then I'll expand the timeline so we can work in there as we go. So this is just a picture. Again, this is picture-in-picture, making use of transitions and text overlays. And again, this would be something, maybe this is you could apply this through two lenses. One, filmmaking and storytelling of maybe this is an animal documentary or some other kind of film that's featuring animals, but also in student presentations as well. So if you see the example I'm using that I built has a couple of different animals that pop up on the screen, and this could be a student presentation as well. So you're going to see a fade in. I've staggered the fade ins too. So here's a picture-in-picture of the macaw, and another fade in, a picture-in-picture of an armadillo. I've used a couple different times of texts to show the two different styles of text that we have in our text library. And as I go through and build this first example, I'll orient you to where you can find these features. So how I did this, really simple. And as a first tip here, an easy way to accomplish this is to stack your videos, making your tracks ahead of time. So what I ended up doing for this project was adding tracks, and you can add a track very easily. I'm going to go ahead and highlight all of these as once and just delete them. I've deleted them from my timeline, and now I'll rebuild it for you. I won't do this in every instance for the tips and tricks as we go, but where it makes sense, I will go ahead and delete and rebuild. Over here on the sidebar, I've got a number of video tracks that I've done a poor job in naming, and that's mostly because I have so many different projects that I'm doing. It didn't make sense for me, but in your classes with your students, naming tracks is a really, I feel like helps a crucial organization skill, especially when they're dealing with multiple tracks, with multiple different kinds of media. So if you're using a text track, you're using multiple video tracks, you're using audio tracks, even naming them to what they are, right? So that video with the sloth, I might have it say sloth video. So I'm very specific about what it is that the media is in that part of my timeline. And even with my video with the armadillo, I would say label it that, and so on and so forth. So I'd start by adding the number of tracks I think I might need. And in my case, I have 1, 2, 3 video tracks. Text tracks can serve video media as well. They're meant for text or video media, but I labeled them text to know appropriately where I'm going to put my text when I start to build my timeline and my picture-in-picture and my transitions. So the first thing I'm going to do is use my base video. I've got my project bin set up here, and I went ahead and found everything ahead of time for this project. But what I most used here was videos, images, and audio. I'll show you text and transitions when we get there. But really what I did was I went and I searched for a sloth video in the stock media library, and I added this to my project bin, and I added all of my media ahead of time before I started building. So this, right, apply this through multiple lenses, right? If this is a film with footage that you've captured through cameras or phones and you're importing it, or if you're adding stock media, if you're adding music and sound effects, something that I've found really particularly helpful is adding as much of the media up front as you can from the stock media library or from your imports to set up your edit before you start adding things on the timeline. Given, of course, you know that there's going to be some revisions happening. Hans talked about refining and revising and feedback, right? So there might be more that's going to need to be added, but getting as much of the media loaded into that project bin as you can to have it there and ready is really helpful, again, as an organizational strategy for students to to help the process, the editing process, not feel like a slog, right? And not have to keep going back and keep going back and keep going back. So yes, labeling files can be like pulling teeth. I would set that up and as part of the scaffold to the process. If you're teaching this, right, we're not going to be teaching this maybe over a 1 day. We're not cramming everything into a day. I've seen successful educators build day over day, 30 minutes, an hour here and there, where you're teaching discrete skills about the editing environment. If you have brand new students, right, and this entirely depends on where you and your students are in your proficiency in editing and using the WeVideo environment specifically. But I would scaffold all of these skills. That kind of helps maybe reduce the burden on the organization teaching to organize all at once. So another really great tip for adding project media is a right click and then sharing to the project. So you see here, I just selected this piece of media. I right clicked, I shared it to the project. The other way you can add it to your project bin is by dragging it directly to the project timeline and adding it there. All of this will go into your project bin. I find it easier just so I don't have to delete the clip after I added it. I just right click and add it. And that's a really fast way of populating your media bin. I'm saying a lot of this up front. I'm not going to kind of return to that as we go on to the different tips and tricks, but to set you up for different ways of organizing media to be able to put it in the timeline. These are some, I think, important skills to focus on. So I'm going to start by grabbing my media to build my picture-in-picture. I'm going to find my bottom video track here, which I labeled video 1. Again, if you want to rename the track, you can just click in there. I'm just, for now, going to label it sloth video. I'm going to drag that down to the timeline, put it here. I don't want it to be this length. It's a 45-second clip. So I'm going to trim that all the way down to about 10 seconds here. Grab my scrubber, bring it here. And then I'm going to start building my picture-in-picture by stacking videos on top of the sloth video. And I'm going to offset them so it doesn't come in all at once. And I had, I believe, this macaw here. I chose random animal videos as I was going through this. This might have made more sense if I chose another jungle animal or forest animal, not an armadillo. But armadillos are fun. And so I chose that as an example. I'm not going to build the text yet because I'm going to show you how to scale this first. And you can do that directly from the preview window here, which is a really great tip. You can also double click the clip to get into the editor to transform the clip, to scale it down, to fit a specific size, and to get have like exact control over the coordinates of where you're placing this clip. But what I typically do here is scale it directly from the preview window by grabbing that top left corner, and then I can move it freely wherever I want it. I don't want it that big. I'm going to put it a little bit smaller. And now I've scaled my macaw, and now I'm going to go grab my armadillo, and I'm going to put that in another video track, and I'm going to offset that from the macaw so it comes in a little bit off of the transition from the macaw. I've got my armadillo. I can do the same thing with him. I'm going to show you the other method here for doing that. I'm going to click into the clip to get to my editing toolkit. This is some of the things that Hans showed you briefly as he went through his Film Essentials portion of the presentation today, but you've got all of these different editing tools here. The transform tool is what I'm using to scale these. And so then I can just grab the scrubber, the bar here, and move it down to scale it down. And then I can move it in the preview window. I can also use the coordinates here. But again, a really easy way for students to do this is just to move it in the preview window. It's really, really fun to, really easy. It's a lot easier and quicker to do it that way. Again, if you want to be super exact, you can use the XY coordinates. You can also use the scale here. You can mess with the opacity and the rotation. We now have freeform rotation, so you can up to 360 degrees. So you can rotate the clips if you want. And you can have them fade in. I'll show you how to do that with a transition, but if you wanted a automatic fade in for these, you could select that. And then if any clips don't fit the window, you can add a blurred background here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click done. Now I have, if I scroll back, now I'm going to have my macaw and my armadillo in there. Okay, this one's a little bit bigger than the macaw, so I want it to be exact. So I'm going to click in here, find the scale of the macaw, 0.34, click into the armadillo and change that. So now they're exactly the same size. I'm going to put this guy over here because they're a little bit bigger than they were in the example that I made. Now I'm going to quickly add my text. I'm going to go ahead and exit out of here, click done. I'm going to go to my text menu and I'm going to use titles here. Now you can use motion titles for these, captions, multi-line motion titles, but I'm just going to use static text for this. I think I used varsity for the macaw. And I can scale this and move it over. I'm going to do this really quick so I can get to the other techniques. I'm going to go ahead and put that there. Actually, I want this to go all the way to the end of the sloth video and this to go to the end of the sloth video as well. They'll come in differently, but they're all going to stay together and exit together. And then I'll go ahead and put my neon clip in for my armadillo and scale that. Let's put that guy above him, scale it down. Now, again, I can get exact if I wanted to by clicking here and looking at what size the font is over here as well. That's 87. So again, 98. Okay, sure. I can go in here and change that to 98. And now I've got my text and my pictures. I'm going to change this to armadillo. And then I can go to, now I want to make it smaller. There we go. So I can fit it in one. So 92 now. And this one is macaw, I think. Am I getting that wrong? Is this a macaw? All right. So there we go. And then I can see how that looks. Now I have a hard kind of cut there. But I want them to fade in. So I'm going to add a transition for each of these. And I'm just going to do a quick crossfade. By selecting the plus here, it's going to add a transition in line. You can also add transitions from the side menu here. It automatically defaults to a crossfade, and that's what I'm just going to use that for this one because I like the effect it creates. But if you select the transition, you can also change it. We have dozens of different kinds of transitions that you can use and play around with. Get creative with them for what makes sense, right? Again, like I said, using these sparingly and meaningfully creates the visual effect that you want it to create. So again, I'm showing you an example out of context, but as you take the ideas of where you can find these features, make sure that this makes sense for the piece that you're making, right? The story that you're telling, whatever you're communicating to an audience, the transitions can really impact that. So you don't want to choose like, the parasol transition if there's like a really serious scene happening and you're just kind of randomly choosing a transition to use in your project. That's not meaningful and it's not effective. So let's play this back and see what it looks like. So there comes that fades in, and it'll remain until the clip is done. Okay. So that is the picture-in-picture and transitions. Next, we'll talk about, and in the interest of time, I'll just scrub us forward here to one of my favorite effects, honestly. One of my favorite documentarians, Ken Burns, has this effect named after him. I'm honestly not sure of the backstory of when he started using this, if Hans or Joe, if you have much more information and knowledge about the history of filmmaking, want to share anything more about the Ken Burns effect and its origination. Obviously, he uses it to great extent and to it makes his films visually interesting. And it's really just a way of animating a still image. And in our editor, you can do that by adding a clip from the stock media library or an image that you've created or you've uploaded and selecting the clip here. So again, really great in history documentaries. I just grabbed a clip from that might be used, an image in a history documentary. I've double clicked that and I've come to the animation tab here in our editing toolbar. And it's really just creating the start and end position of your image. And it's as simple as that. So again, a way to make a still image more interesting by adding that Ken Burns effect to this is by just changing the end position. Honestly, is all I did for this one. The resolution isn't great the more you zoom in, obviously, but it does provide an effect if you're wanting to zoom in on a particular aspect of an image, or you're doing it for the effect of your story, or there's a script component, a dialogue component to why you might want to move the viewer's frame of vision from one point to another, zooming in on something. That's a really effective use of the Ken Burns effect. And again, it's just a really great way to make a still image more visually interesting. So I can play this from here. As you can see, it's a quick zoom. You can control the speed of this by lengthening or shortening the clip. So if I had a 3-second clip and I was zooming in all the way on the statue in the center, it would be a quicker effect than if it was a longer clip and we were having a wider range of our start and our end positions. So again, that's that. And then just to show kind of a vertical start and end, I found this fun cat picture, and I'm gonna kind of zoom in quickly on this cat here. And I've done that start position from so sort of the top end of the vertical to the bottom end of that axis in that still image to make it a little bit more interesting. So you can see kind of the different ways you can use the Ken Burns effect to highlight some part of the image that you want viewers to key in on with that feature. So I feel like I'm just going to stay in the timeline. If folks want, we're going to send out the slide decks. Inside the slide deck, you'll get access to all of the different tips and tricks that we're going through today, the importance and value of those, and also there's some GIFs in there that will show you how to do this. But I can stay here because I have a lot of that information up here. I don't need to go reference it on the slides, so I can kind of talk through that as I'm making this for you. So the next tip or trick is using the chroma key feature. And as Hans and Joe talked about, like adding special effects or visual effects, utilizing green screen. Contrary to popular belief, the screen and color of the background does not need to be green. It can be blue, it can be red. It doesn't matter. It's called green screen as it's the most popular kind of background that's used. But if you have backgrounds that are different color, it will work equally as well. The backgrounds that don't work so well are backgrounds that will take out the color of the image that you want. So if you have somebody that's wearing red, you don't want to put a red background because when you chroma key the red out, it's going to also take out more than you probably want from that scene or that shot. So just keep that in mind. It needs to be sort of an opposed color to what is in the rest of what you're trying to key out, to make sure that you keep in what you need kept in and take out the background that you need to take out. As mentioned earlier in the presentation, you don't actually need, if you don't have a green screen in your classroom, or you don't have a way to do that, there are really cheap options. Instead of having to buy, a professional green screen, you can tape colored pieces of construction paper together. You can use a painted wall, or you can use green screen media from the stock media library, which I've done here in this first example. I've just found we have so many stock media assets that you can really find almost anything in there. And this is literally a pigeon against a green screen that I use often because I just think it's hilarious that we have a pigeon against a green screen like this, and that you can put the pigeon in any environment you want. And so one thing I used to do many years ago here when I was doing trainings is have the pigeon go to Disneyland. So I have stacked my clips with the green screen clip on top of the image of what you want to put that clip into. So Disneyland is down here on the bottom. And all I have to do simply is double click the pigeon clip and go to my keying option here, select the dropper, and then key out the green. And now the pigeon is at the Cinderella's castle in Disneyland. And I can transform this. It's way too big. It's a giant pigeon at Disneyland. I can defringe it, which is going to take some of the green lines that you can kind of see faintly on the outside of the pigeon. I'm going to try to take that away as best I can. That's pretty good. And then again, I can scale it. If I go to the transform tool, I can make him, whoop, nope, I'm going to click on the pigeon here. I'm the pigeon. I have to go out and get to the pigeon clip. Okay, there we go. And I can now scale the pigeon direct. I'll just do it from the preview window up here, make the pigeon smaller, adjust him there. And now the pigeon is in Disneyland, or is that Disney World? Whatever it is, it's a castle in a Disney theme park that the pigeon is now enjoying itself in. Oh, it's too long. Let me trim that. And now the pigeon won't exit Disneyland or Disney World. And there you go. The other way to do this, we actually have in our quick recorder extension, which was not touched on, very briefly touched on today, but we do have a background remover there where you can put a green screen behind yourself when you're recording, and then you can then put yourself in a different background. So again, here I am using the screen recorder with the green background. Again, if I double click in here, I go to my keying tool and I can go ahead and key out the background. I'm in Disney World. And this is me. Maybe I'm talking about something. This can be an alternative to using picture-in-picture, as we mentioned earlier. You can use picture-in-picture for instructional purposes, or you can use the chroma key tool to transport yourself to wherever you want to be in the world or in the universe, honestly, because you could put yourself in space with these tools as well. So if I'm giant now. I'm a giant monster in Disney World. I don't want to be that giant. I'm going to shrink myself and put myself here. And then I'm chatting about something completely unrelated to Disney World, but you get the idea that you can, use this to put yourself as an instructor, or think about how you're putting kids in scenes using a green screen. And it's really that simple within the WeVideo editing platform. Now, I will say, in terms of like its capabilities as a professional green screen tool, there are some limitations. The difference tool and the sensitivity tool only go so far. So it really, you've got to have good lighting if you're going to use a green screen in the classroom. The lighting is key, so you're not creating shadows that are going to be difficult to key out, and it will create worse green rings around your actors if the lighting is not great. And you can't do a lot to mitigate that in the product after you've filmed it and imported it to lessen the shadows if you're not using good lighting, right? So I really encourage, if you are going to use a green screen background in your classroom, that you do invest in lights or have some kind of lighting equipment that's going to really reduce the shadows as much as possible. Okay, we are speeding through these tips and tricks. Another one, I might skip one because I think we color correction I'll cover in the blended features one that I'm going to do. There's speed ramps. Speed ramps are fun. The kids love like speeding up and slowing things down, but there's a purpose to this. If you're wanting to move through a scene or a shot quickly or for effect, you can speed things up using a speed ramp. Or slow things down if you want to focus in on something. Whoops, I went backwards to Disneyland again. But here's a good example of the way I'm able to move through this forest scene. So, right, normal speed here, and then I've created this speed up and off, right? Create an on and an off ramp to speed your clip up. And it's incredibly simple to do with our editing tools. So, I've dragged this clip into the timeline. I click on it. I'm going to go to speed, this little snail on a skateboard down here. And I create the range of where I want the ramp to start and finish. So for this clip, it's a couple seconds in, and it lasts a good amount of time because I really want to get my viewers through this shot or scene quickly. And to create an effect that I might have, it's part of my visual elements that I'm adding here to, for whatever purpose and meaning that you have in your story. And then I sped up, I used this slider to speed it up 9 times. So you have 1 time speed is like normal speed. Then you can go up or faster or slower, depending on what you wanted. I sped it up 9 times. And then adjusted for the range. You can ease in and ease out by just easily selecting that button. There's more finite tools that you can do to do your own easing, but if you select that, it'll ease it in and out for you. And you can, again, get as technical with this as you want. but that's a really easy way to create that sped up speed ramp. So here, show it again. Adjusted the range. There it goes, right on the ramp and off the ramp. And then again, against that, you can also slow a clip down. So I found this cool skateboarder doing a flip trick, and I'm able to slow it down. I really exaggerated the slowdown here. So you could see the feet motion on the skateboard, the rotation of the board, how it's landed. And then it'll speed back up as it comes off the ramp and back to, this was already slowed down a little bit. So I dramatically slowed it down to show the effect of what I wanted my viewer to see from this clip, to make sure I was highlighting that really cool trick. And again, same editing procedure, clicked on my clips, went into my speed, selected a range. This was a much smaller range because the clip was 20 seconds long. And I only wanted to focus on that. I think it's a 2 second. Yeah, right here. It's a 2.8 second speed ramp. So I'm coming on and off of it only in 2 seconds. And I really slowed it down, right? 1/7 of the speed from what it already was. I don't know what the already slowed down speed was of this clip initially, but it slowed it down even more. So you could really focus on that cool trick. Okay. So let's see. I think the next one that I'll show you here is audio. So using sound effects and using music. So there are 2 different types of audio clips that you can get in the WeVideo stock media library, or importing your own, of course. You can do sound effects and you can do music. And both of those serve different purposes in telling a story. Sound effects create, like Hans was talking about, like using things like Foley to create effects that you might want to capture in post-production, or that you can't capture during filming, or music to create atmosphere and mood and emotion and tone of the film. Can be done with both things, but again, there are purposes for each. And there are really cool ways within WeVideo to be able to blend audio and to be able to have different balances within your audio clips, whether that's sound effects or whether that's music. I'm going to show this effect as it relates to sound effects first. So what I've done here is I'm going to show you here too, turning on your audio levels is a really helpful way for students to understand how loud or soft something is. So that's a really simple procedure in the product. Is you just click this drop down and select show audio, show opacity as well. This is the translucence of a clip or of a piece of media. So it's how you can use this to fade in or fade out. And you can sort of blur and blend things together using opacity, in addition to transition. So this is kind of another technique of editing where you can use that crossfade transition, or you can dip to black, or you can really finitely control the blending and the fading by changing the opacity of clips to stitch them together so that one shot or scene blends seamlessly into another as a really nice visual effect and a visual transition for your film. So where did my scrubber go? All the way back here. Okay, at the skateboarder. So come down here. This clip is 3 different clips where you're going to hear sounds of a forest. So you're going to hear a waterfall sound before you see, you're going to hear bird sounds and waterfall sounds. You're going to hear the bird sounds before any visuals appear. And this is a technique to sort of pique the interest of the audience, to provide the audio up front before a clip or a visual is shown. And then you're going to hear transitions within the audio. And I've used, and a lot of beginning WeVideo users don't know this, but you can keyframe audio and you can keyframe opacity. And I'll show you very quickly how to do that. But that's just an advanced editing technique to control the balance of the volume and where you want that to appear in your clip or in your scene or in your shot. So here's the example. I hope you can hear this. I'll try to turn my volume up a little bit here, but this is that of using sound effects. Okay. Now you're going to hear the waterfall is going to start to come in before you see the waterfall, as the bird sounds kind of balance out. And again, on the other side, I'm going to dip the volume of the waterfall, increase the sound of the birds. A little bit more of a sharper cut there. But again, that creating the tone and the feeling of that scene that I was wanting to communicate. Now, I could add a voiceover to that if I was narrating a nature documentary, or as a student presentation, or telling or leading into another part of my film. But really easy ways to kind of create ramps for your music and your sound effects, and to help give the visuals a tone and an atmosphere. So keyframing is really easy. If I have my audio and opacity levels shown, I can just click in, one click to add a keyframe and a double click to remove it. And then I can move the volume as a percentage up or down, depending on how I want it to come in or out. Okay. And that's really simple. And you can do it as many times infinitely to control that. As you see here, I've highlighted the keyframes there. Here they are here, as I've made, like smoother music audio transitions and then sharper ones here to highlight the sounds or to create the tone that I want for this. And it's really, again, part of the atmosphere of the scene that I've made. Really simple to do. Opacity is the same way. I use this. I could have used a crossfade transition, but this makes it a little bit more of a smooth ramp for this visual to come in. And then I use that same technique over here to come out of the scene to fade it out. So I know we're right at 6 o'clock Eastern time. I'm just going to show you really quick an example of how I blend a couple of these features together. So I didn't get into the technical. In the deck, you're going to see things about L cuts and J cuts that are very specific to creating transitions in both visuals and audio. A quick just comment on that. A J cut tends to be where the audio, as I showed you in that clip, comes in before the visual. And it sort of creates a J look on the editing timeline. At times it can, but I've used that, and I've used a couple of other things in here as well, including color correction and music to change the tone of a scene. So just really quickly wanted to play this. This will be in the deck for you guys to get, but if you put all of these sort of techniques together, the audio levels, the using sound effects and music to create tone, using color correction, which I didn't get to, but I can show you here how you can adjust color. Hans mentioned this to help in matching or help in creating different kinds of visual effects on your piece of media. This is a really cool way to do that. So I'll just play this blended features and then we'll get out of here. Just a hard cut here. Maybe another solid cut here. Oh, great. Environment's awesome. Loving what I'm seeing. And then the change in tone. And I've used some color correction technique here to change the color of the ocean, and then transition to evil nuclear factory and cut to sunsetting factory to create that change in mood and tone. So I'll leave it there because I know we are definitely out of time. And I'll bring Joe and Hans back on to the stage with me. And thank you all for joining us today. Joe, thanks for allowing me the 3 extra minutes to show those cool examples.
Oh, yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, thank you all who have stuck with us. This is definitely a longer session than we typically do, and it's been a pleasure chatting with you all about film. It was light outside when we started, and it is dark now. So, like Ryan said, we'll send you the presentation deck tomorrow. If you are a educator and looking for some PD hours, PD credit, we'll have an editable template for you there as well. WeVideo.com/events is where you can find weekly webinars about things beyond film school. I think what Ryan has showed, we talk a lot about student choice at WeVideo and empowering student choice. And that's what goes into a lot of the design of our editor, is enabling students to have tons of choices. Our lucky trivia winners, expect an email from me tomorrow so that I can get your address and we can send you some goodies. Ryan, Hans, thank you both very much. Hope all of you have a fantastic evening and a great rest of the week.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.